Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 3, and today I'm going to be giving you part 25 of What If Naruto Was Betrayed by Hagoromo. Remember to get this one to 100 like as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto Was the direct descendant of the sage over an Anime King, and enjoy that guys. And he also posts a brand new episode of What If Naruto had a new training trip partner that will change everything over an Anime King too, and enjoy that as well guys. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you're hearing my voice, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family and join Anime King, Anime King 2 and Anime King 3. And thank you all for your help and your support. And yeah, without further ado, what do you say begin this new episode? Start the intro. So, the last time we left off, 3 years has passed since everything, as Mito and Jiraiya was coming back to the village. Mito has gotten a lot taller and filled out quite a bit. It seems like she became even more beautiful, as Jiraiya had a lot on his mind as he was thinking about the trip the entire way. The Otsutsuki Empire, that is the name of the land of rice right now. The land of sound, everything. It has been taken over and called the Otsutsuki Empire. No one had seen Naruto in the past couple of years, but all of the trade routes, everything, had been conquered by the Otsutsuki Empire. All of the minor villages had fallen into line rather quickly. Jiraiya was confused. Despite Naruto having the power and the strength, villages don't usually just give up like that. Entire village had been taken over under siege, and the Otsutsuki Empire was, well, a fortress, a defenses that no one could break through, as it was surrounded by nothing but rushing water down below. There was a single bridge that you could cross to make your way over there. The only other way to get there was to fly, and it would take a long distance, but Jiraiya was sure that they would be shooting down anything that come too close without authorization. But he didn't have time to think about that now as they were back, making their way to the office. Another person then came back as well. After a few minutes, it was Sasuke, as he made his way to the office along with Kakashi. As Mito hugged him as she was happy to see him, Tsunade was happy to see that the both of them has grown, and she wanted to test their strength. But they will do that tomorrow for now. Allow them time to rest up, as Mito was also happy as she wanted to see Haku. Meanwhile, Zetsu was thinking about his encounter with Naruto over the past couple of years, which Naruto has been basically shutting him out. It is almost like he didn't care about bringing back Mother at all. That confused Zetsu as he thought that Naruto would want to bring back Mother as well. But it seemed like he would be getting no help with that project, so everything was going at normal rate. The only reassurance he got from Naruto was that he will give him the power of the Akatsuki and the Nibe to, well, help in Mother resurrection. Meanwhile, with Naruto, Yujito was the first one to wake up, as she was in a bed with Karin and Teiwaya. The three of them has been his mates for the past 3 years. She still didn't know how she feel about the idea, but it wasn't so bad. After all, if she told her younger self this, her younger self would have scoffed at the idea. Many of them had fallen in line after all of the locations of the bases that Orochimaru had, well, occupied, had been laid out. Karin was one of them, but for some reason Naruto didn't choose her as well. Well, it was like she wanted more girls in the bed. It was, well, curious. Something then happened as the ear in front of her shifted, as she watched a swirling vortex open up, as a masked man stepped inside. He wasn't wearing his akatsuki clothing, so she didn't know that he was a part of the group. As Teiwaya and Karin wake up as well. They told him if he want to live, he should just leave, as he didn't take that as the best answer, as that caused Naruto to wake up. Naruto completely ignored the man as he spoke to the girls. After they had left, he turned towards the man. Obito thought that this was going to be easy, but he underestimated Naruto too much just because he thought his invulnerability was going to help him. Naruto moved so fast he was unable to activate Kamui, as he was nearly torn in half, but he activated just in time for Naruto to pass through him. As Naruto smirked, as he knew exactly what he was doing as he peered through the eye hole to see the Sharingan, as Naruto attacked him once more, but then he used the other hand and ripped a dimension in front of him open after scanning Obito with his eyes. He was able to open up the dimension with just pure exertion of his eyes. He then reached in as he beat Obito severely. As he tossed the man to the window, the window started to recover, as seal and erase spread across the walls, as Obito would fall to his death. Obito was gasping in mid-air. If he didn't do something, he would definitely die. He was able to open a swirling vortex though, which he used to escape, and that is how Zetsu found him. So yeah guys, that was basically as we left off. You guys can switch across to the place and check it out for yourself. So what is to begin this new episode? We begin this episode in one of the many training grounds of Konoha. There were just a few people out there, as Kakashi was one of them as he spoke. Wouldn't it be better if Jiraiya-sama was the one who tested them, he said, as he looked towards Tsunade and Jiraiya, who was sitting up in a tree. You're just saying that because you want to return to reading that new perverted smut. You know, you have no appreciation to literature that belongs to the gods, said Jiraiya. Tsunade snorted. You call that pornographic book literature? He muttered something under his breath. Tsunade's eye twitched as she heard him as she knocked him right off the tree as he fell down. Kakashi, you tested the two of them a long time ago. I want to know what you think of their skills now. But what about the other one? Said Kakashi. Well, I have my reasons. Well, considering that you were the one that trained her, Lady Hokage, and not to mention that Mito has been training with Jiraiya for the past 3 years, and I know that even Sasuke has his secrets here and there. Do you really think that this is wise? And why do you sound like you're scared, Kakashi? You know, you should be one of my elites. You should be ready for all challenge, said Tsunade with a smile on her face. As Kakashi simply sighed. Well, if you say so, ma'am, he said, as he made his way out in the field. Well, it wasn't like he was scared. On the one hand, he wanted to go and read his book, as he reached to a rather interested part, and he just didn't want to miss out on any more time of it. But he will have to fight the three of them. He had no idea what either Mito or Haku was capable of. But either way, he had a suspicion that Tsunade was going to assign Haku to a makeshift team that she was creating. Well, it seems that way. Mito and Haku and Sasuke had already reunited quite well, as they missed each other a lot. And now it was time to test their skills, as the three of them stood there. The future of Konoha. As Mito was smiling the entire time, Haku had that soft similar smile on her face. Haku has grown over the last 3 years as well, her hair coming down into her lower back as it has gotten longer, as her features were now most pronounced, as you could see it well in many different areas. Jiraiya had complimented on it, and that caused Tsunade to punch him and send him sailing over the village, as he was perverting on her little apprentice. Tsunade for her part was impressed. The amount of determination this one girl has, it was beyond anything she expected, as the girl took to her teaching quite well, as she just wanted to see she showed it off to the others. Jiraiya hopped up back to the tree as he rubbed his head. You know, that was not very nice. Well, keep a tab on that mouth of yours and you won't get harmed, she said, as Jiraiya simply scoffed to himself, making sure that she did not hear him, as he wouldn't want another one of those punches from her. Alright, you three, said Kakashi as he pulled out a bell. You three already know about this concept, but Haku, it is your guys' objective to retrieve these bells from me. As Haku nodded, she was wearing a yukata that was suited for fighting. And as you three should know, come at me with the intent to kill. After all, if you don't, there is no chance that you'll be getting the bell. Kakashi-sensei, are you sure about that, Mito asked, as she looked at him with a grin. Seems like she knows something that he did not. Of course I am, as he nodded, because, unlike last time, you three have improved, so I might as well. As he activated Sharingan, seeing that he no longer had to keep it down, and he could also deactivate it, thanks to Naruto. Well, something he would get to thank him for anymore. After all, Kakashi had not seen him for a very long time. Alright, begin. As he stepped back, neither of them moved, as they just stood there. Kakashi waited for something as the three of them turned to each other, and they all started to whisper something. He watched as the three of them nodded. It was then that Mito shot forward with speed that surprised him. She reached him in a couple of seconds. Then suddenly she ducked. The moment she did, Ice Senbon rained towards Kakashi, forcing him to leap away from his position. He leaped, only to twist in mid-air as he blocked a sword strike from Sasuke with his kunai. He smirked as he flipped and brought his heel back to kick Sasuke out of mid-air. But Sasuke was grabbed by chains and pulled down to the ground, as Sasuke released a massive fireball in mid-air while he was being dragged down by the chains. Kakashi, seeing that, quickly substituted a log, as the log was burned. Kakashi reappeared in the forest, quite surprised that they were, moving this coordinated already. After all, they haven't seen each other in a couple of years, and Haku wasn't even a part of their team, but they were moving so well. He then heard something, as he had to move as earth spikes burst out of the ground, impaling all the surrounding trees. As he saw Haku raising her hand from the ground, as Haku had learned another affinity. She already had the affinity for water and wind to make her ice, her Keiki Genkai, but she also picked up earth as well with her training under Snaddy, as it got her to thinking after using brute strength. As she picked it up as well, knowing a few earth techniques here and there. Someone landed behind him as he twists, dodging a fist that passed his face. He then brought his hand around and clashed with Mito. He was surprised when her hand remained firm, as her strength has truly increased. The both of them went into a taijutsu brawl. Kakashi was able to keep up quite well with his Sharingan, but as he noticed she was not going all out, it seemed like she was the one that was testing him. Suddenly, she dropped down flat on the ground. As she slammed her hand while she dropped, Kakashi had to quickly leap from the ground as the ground turned into a swamp. He then realized something as he tossed a kunai towards down Mito as she leaped out of the way. She was not the one that cast that jutsu. Chains exploded out of the ground everywhere as they came towards him. He substituted with a log, reappearing in the forest. As he was surprised, they just began and they were already going on this hard. He then twisted his head as a sword ripped through the tree that he was leaning on. He then turned as he brought her on his fist that connected with Sasuke's fist. Sasuke grabbed onto his wrist and twisted him. Kakashi low tapping as he twisted in mid-air, bringing down his heel and stomping on Sasuke's shoulder, only for Sasuke to poof away. Suddenly, the real Sasuke arrived in mid-air behind him and drive a heel kick down. Kakashi spun as he blocked with his arm in an X motion. He then had to drop on one feet, use his other feet to pivot around so the ice spikes wouldn't impale him. As he leaped away, going through hand sign, Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. He released a massive fireball, only for Haku to speed through hand sign. Ice release, Ice wall. As she slammed her hand on the ground, an ice wall erupted in front of them, blocking the fireball. The three of them regrouped as Kakashi was gone. As they looked around, it was then that Haku searched to the side, but he was nowhere to be seen. She then raised her fist in mid-air. Snaddy smiled seeing that. Hold on guys, she said. As Mito and Sasuke nodded. Boom! Kakashi eyes went wide as he was underground. What the hell? The entire ground had been rooted up in the tree. Huh. So you also taught her your monster strength, huh? Said Jiraiya, looking rather nervous. Yeah, so it wouldn't be wise to perv on her. She might hurt you, said Snaddy, giving him a beaming smile. Kakashi leaped from the ground as he realized this was more serious than he thought. As he went through hand sign, earth style, earthquake jutsu. As he slammed his hand down, the entire earth shake, only for Mito to pick up Sasuke and Haku with their chains and toss him in mid-air. The both of them flashed through hand sign. Wind style, great wind breakthrough, fire style, fireball jutsu. As the techniques collided, making the fire so much more ferocious. Kakashi leaped away, only for a chain to burst on the ground and grab his feet. He quickly pivoted as he brought his kunai down to sever it, only for that kunai to be knocked out of his hand by a Ice Senbon. as he looked to see Mito coming down. Wind style, wind encampment wall, she said. Mito released a massive stream of wind that came down like a wall as it slammed into the air, creating dust and smoke. Mito landed as she wondered if she went, well, too hard. Only for a hand to break from the ground as it grabbed onto her leg and pulled her into the ground as Kakashi leaped out of the ground. As he smiled at her. Thought you got me, huh? He said. I smiled the entire time. It seems like you forgot. I can feel what my chin are holding onto, she said. As a brutal kick slammed into his side, sending Kakashi sailing, the real one. He flipped in mid-air and skated back. As he looked to see Mito standing there, the clone in the ground poofing away. Suddenly, his arm started to melt. What the hell? As he looked at his arm, he quickly realized what was going on as he flared his chakra, only to find a sword and two kunais pressed up against his throat, rather tight. Kakashi stood there as he looked at Haku. So, seems like Tsunade wasn't her only teacher, as Haku mimicked him by giving him an eye smile. Kunai had also been rather gracious to help her with Genjutsu. After all, the girl chakra control was almost at the same level as Tsunade. I gave, he said, raising his hand in defeat. Kakashi knew that it would be rather hard to defeat all three of them. Sasuke, over the past 3 years, has pushed himself to the absolute max. Not to mention he got training from the god of Shinobi himself. This was the actual god of Shinobi, a man who died long time ago, and that was a sage of 6th path. And the crazy thing about it was Sasuke did not activate his Sharingan. Tsunade, Kunai, and Asuma also chipped in, and Anku as well, as they had helped Haku train over the past 3 years. So that had helped a great deal. And Mito was also trained by the sage as well, and Jiraiya. So there would be no chance of Kakashi winning. Despite it, the three of them working together, they could bring many large enemies down to their knees. And given the fact that they weren't even using their full power, well, it's not like Kakashi was going for blood either way, but they had surely surprised him. And he could have escaped, but he wanted to read his book. That is why he gave up so easily. Not to mention he saw all that he needed to see. Jiraiya and Tsunade walked over as Jiraiya was clapping. It seems like the three of them are a well-working machine, he said. That's exactly what I thought, said Tsunade. That is why I'm gonna turn the three of you into a unit. Despite everything, Kakashi has the most experience, so he will be the leader of this group. And from now on, the team will be called Team Kakashi, she said, as Mito clenched her fists. She wasn't angry, in fact she was happy. This was just another step that she has overcome, showing that she has gotten stronger. And she didn't even reveal all that she has learned in the past 3 years, as she couldn't wait to see him again. This time, she would not fail, no matter what she thought to herself. Meanwhile, that was going on, as Obito was currently lying down in a bed. His severe injuries already been healed, and he also got a new arm, courtesy of White Zetsu. At the moment he was just lying there, he couldn't believe what just happened. Tell me, what happened, said Black Zetsu, breaking from his thoughts. As Obito turned his head slowly, his mask had been destroyed. As he turned his head back up to the ceiling, I underestimate Naruto Uzumaki. Zetsu knew that that was where he went off to. After all, there wasn't much peep that could hurt Obito this badly, given his ability. And this was, well, another proof that the man, the myth, Naruto Osusuke, was on a completely different level. Zetsu knew that he had to play ignorant. What do you mean? I went there to tell him that he has what we need. But I don't know how, or how he was able to. But he was able to break through my kamui, somehow enter my dimension. His eyes, they were nothing like Nagato's. As Zetsu had to tell them something that made them realize why Naruto was powerful, that he had the Rinnegan as well. They're red, and they had Megatamas like the Sharingans in them, 9 in each. It seems like he scanned me entirely before he just ripped through my dimension and hurt my real body inside. He was so fast I was unable to activate Kamui before he took off my arm. When I came there, it wasn't like I was even a threat. He also spoke, saying that he was the first user of the Sharingan, something that gravely concerned me, because that shouldn't be possible. I have no idea if he's gone mad or what, but this is a big concern, because I don't know where he has the juice. But it seems like he's a bigger threat than we thought. It seems that Nagato will have to go after him. Now? Said Zetsu. No. After we finish collecting the others. At the moment, Deidara and Sasori should be getting the One Tails right now. As Zetsu released a sigh of relief on the inside. If Nagato ever made his way to the Otsutsuki Empire, Naruto would crush him without a second thought. And Naruto would be more furious to find out that a common human has the eyes that he should not have. Yes, he would make sure to crush Nagato. And Zetsu needed him for the plan, seeing that Naruto wasn't going to help at all. Yes, he really needed Nagato, so he was glad that at least Obito was thinking, well, this should give you proper warning to not go there again. Obito pulled himself up as he sat down in the bed. It doesn't matter. Soon enough I will have what I want. He will fall no matter what. Zetsu scoffed in his head. If this child only knew how naive he was. Well, it's not like he would tell him. Meanwhile, that was going on at the Otsutsuki Empire. At the moment Teiwaya was going through some papers, she really didn't like the paperwork and all that crap. But being partially in control of the empire, there were still paperwork and things to do, and people to keep under the command. She couldn't believe it, as she was just nothing but a foot soldier, one of Orochimaru's bodyguards, but here she was now, practically running the empire. Well, not she alone, but still, she had rose up in rank so much, and not to mention she was actually sleeping with the boss of all boss, a literal god. She see no reason why not to call him that. After all, he had the powers that showed that he was a god. Under her command, everyone else feared Teiwaya. She was the first to inherit some of Naruto's power, well, the first that they knew about. But over the years, she has gotten quite adapted to it, and she has learned how to wrestle and partially control the power within her. And she has gotten so much stronger, and that made her attitude even more lethal towards those who was under her command. If you mixed up anything or did anything out of the way that she warned you about, there will be no warning second time, only death. Her tone was, well, even more foul. Well, she never showed its side around Naruto, but for the others, she was a terrible, controlling monster. Yes, that is what many of them thought. But despite that, they had to come to respect her power and especially her authority, despite most of them believing that she didn't deserve to rule. Well, those people are long dead now. As she went through the paperwork, she heard footsteps behind her. As she turned, "What do you want?" she said. "I'm here to see him." "About what?" The girl in front of her had red hair and red eyes. It was none other than Karin Uzumaki. "A little research that I'm diving into," she said. "I kind of need a bit more of his chakra." Teiwaya scowled a bit as she looked at the girl. "You know, you have some guts to be asking for something like that. Again, hadn't you been given enough to satisfy you and your curiosity?" "Well, I have something else to work on. Can I see him or not?" said Karin. "Well, he's not here at the moment." "And where is he? You think I'm lying?" "Yes, of course. You're harsh with everyone and always keeping his whereabouts a secret, and we all know that he is here. Although he rarely shows his face around here. But still, I need to speak with him." "And I said he's not here," said Teiwaya. "And where is he then?" Teiwaya simply put a hand on her head. She could see the reason why Naruto didn't like this girl. Well, like he liked them. After all, he didn't give her the privilege of sleeping with him. As she didn't know why, but she think of that as a privilege. After all, this girl was sick. It seems like years of experiments. Well, not she getting experimented on, but she doing experiments done to her head. And for Naruto, when the girl first felt his chakra, she became aroused in more ways than one. And she pleaded with him, she begged him, she was at his knees, begging to run tests. and that it will help his kingdom. If he was one thing, he was curious. So he gave her some of his chakra, and the girl has been experimented ever since. Well, she did something great. She was the one that created the seals to fix the broken damage. And that was something useful that he saw within her. But despite that, TY could tell that he didn't really like her that much. She looked like she was sick, demented, and twisted. Yes, seems like she got off on doing these kind of things, these experiments. But she wasn't lying. He's not here, okay? We got information from some of our trackers about what is going on in Kiri. It seems that the civil war is only intensifying. Oh yeah. So, he's there? Yeah. And don't get any funny ideas. If he ever sees you there, he might kill you. He wouldn't like you going all the way out there just to ask him for chakra. Oh, why the hell would I even go out there? I'll just wait until he come back then. When do you think that is? How the hell should I know? I mean, aren't you kind of his girlfriend? Said Karin, rolling her eyes. What? Jealous? Said Tewaya. Of course not, said Karin, as she adjusts her glasses. Then why do you say that way? Tewaya asks. Karin simply sighed. Whatever, I'll be back soon, she said. She walked off. As Tewaya simply laughed to herself a bit. Most of them, if not all the girls, were jealous that she was in this position. Especially those that she, well, grew up to know in the sound when she wasn't yet Orochimaru bodyguard. Most of them were jealous back then when she became Orochimaru bodyguard. But they became increasingly jealous now, knowing that she was actually sleeping with the king of this place. Well, that was a good fortune on her part. She was lucky that day that he spared her life, as she would never forget it. As for the king himself, as she was right, a giant behemoth, the thing's shadow cover large areas as it flew in the sky, as it was flying over a large, deep ocean, making its way towards Kiri. As Naruto was currently making his way towards Kiri, the reason being, as he had to start out somewhere, and he figured there would be his first, well, showing that he's back. He looked at his hand as he flexed it a bit. Father, said Ragnarok, as he was currently flying on Ragnarok's head. As the dragon felt so wonderful to be out here once again. As he was happy when his father had called upon him. You are still not at 100%. As Naruto flexed his arm. Yeah, but I will be in a few hours. This is just to get the blood pumping. And these humans, they are still conducting war under your nose, knowing that you're back. Yes, they're rather rude, aren't they? Well then, father, allow me the pleasure to burn them all to crisps. No, not all of them. Father? Said Ragnarok, surprised to hear that. After all, Ragnarok, we still need some people to rule the world. If we go around killing everyone, humanity will thin out. Ah, I see now, said Ragnarok. Yes. Wise as always, father. We still need slaves to rule the world for us. As Naruto patted him on the head. Yes, my son, he said. Despite everything, it would seem strange calling a giant behemoth like Ragnarok someone's son, but Naruto was one that created him, and he felt a bond to Ragnarok. Much like how Hagoromo felt towards the other Bijus. Alright then, father. I will pick up the pace. With that, Ragnarok burst off. For something his size, he was surely fast as he made his way. Meanwhile, that was going on at Kiri. Currently, underground, sat one Materumi. As there was basements. It seems like old war bunkers that has been carved out in the second Shinobi War, and they were now being used as the rebel base. Materumi was currently going over reports. They have lost a lot this past year on the rebellion side, and they had only taken down a few of Yagura loyalists. Things were bad, really bad. They were almost at a turning point. Couple of years ago, but then the sky became red, the oceans split, giant tidal waves came out and smashed in the eastern seaboard, destroying and wiping out a lot of the rebel bases. Yes, the water had seeped underground and crushed many monuments, and many of them had to flee. And Yagura got the upper hand when reinforcement came to back up a large group, and they were all slaughtered. She didn't know what caused that strange occurrence, but it surely cost them a lot. She heard a knock. Enter, she said. As Ayo entered inside, he had a smile on his face. Ma'am, our latest siege has won. As May smiled, completely ignoring the ma'am part, she didn't really like that. That made her sound rather old. As she looked at Ayo, he was one of her most trusted subordinates. Him and Kojo, she could always count on them. As she released a sigh, how much has that been, she said. 3. In the past few weeks, if this continues, we should be able to overtake the western part in a month, tops. She drummed her fingernails on the table, despite him making it sound good that was rather bad. If Hagoromo decided to attack now, while they were out there in the open, many of them would be slaughtered without a second thought. We need to speed this up. But ma'am, all of her troops had been spread wide and thin. She got to her feet. Then I will take front center. No, said Ayo. Ayo, you and I both know that I'm not some kind of fragile woman to hide in the background. I know that, but spit it out, she said. You are our hope. If we lost you, I don't think there would be anyone here to continue on this hope. You need to stay here. Just have trust in the system. This will work out. Despite knowing that, well, it might fail, his words kind of brought a calm to her heart, as she was hoping that he was right. Some way, by some divine presence, they will be able to pull through this and not lose so many more people. She should be careful for what she wished for, because her prayers will be answers, but not in the right way. Meanwhile, as Naruto looked down, as he activated his Ren Sharingan, his eyes scanning everything at once, he could see miles below him. After all, just because he was using another set of eyes, it doesn't mean his Byakugan wasn't still there. As veins were not bulging outside of his eyes, but he could still see everything quite clearly. His eyes picking out everything. As Ragnarok looked down as well, Master, I can sense a rather large force, and one of the most powerfulest. Ragnarok growled deadly as he glared over to the section where he could sense it. Master, I can sense it. It is one of them, those things that Hagoromo created. Yes, I've heard that they're leaders at Jinchuriki. As Naruto turned his head to the other side, I heard that rebellion forces is over there. What shall we do, Master? Well, if this man was stupid enough to start a war to wipe out rebellion forces that has Kekigenkais. Kekigenkais, Ragnarok said. A pathetic excuse of all my abilities that humans have come to develop over the past times, with their chakra being from Hagoromo. To think that they believe that they're special just to inherit some of the abilities I possess. We should exterminate a lot of them, Ragnarok said. Yes, we shall. Why don't you shrink down a bit, said Naruto. Ragnarok nodded as his body started to get illuminated by a red light. As he started to shrink in size. As Naruto knew if he came into the village at this size, he would just squash it all. He would like to thought before he slaughter. As Ragnarok lowered himself to about the size of a tiger. As Naruto hopped off his head and stood there in mid-air. After all, he could fly. As he looked over at his father and nodded, why don't you send them a warning? He smiled happily. Will do, father, he said, as he fly forward. Meanwhile, Naruto went the opposite direction, as he went to see the rebellion forces. Meanwhile, that was going on, as Hagoromo was comfortably sitting in his chair, not knowing the hell that was going to fall on Kiri at the moment. As he had to appreciate what happened 3 years ago, that was a strange phenomenon that, well, surprised even him. After all, he was surrounded by Mei. Despite him being the Mizukage and quite powerful, she was a worthy fighter, and there was a large bulk of her forces there as well. But they had to all retreat when everything came breaking down, and everything was split, and that left behind a huge battalion of her forces that were surrounded by his when they finally arrived, as he squashed them. And he knew that she was running low on troops. He was just playing this out rather calmly. There was no need to rush. She will soon come to realize that she is not even on his level, and she cannot roll with the big dogs. Suddenly, The village shook as something slammed into it. He looked through his window to see something in the sky. The thing was hurling something from its mouth that struck his village, blowing up buildings. People started to scream and run. Suddenly, Anvus flashed into his office. "What is that?" he asked. "Sir, we have no idea. We will go pursue that once. Take it down. It's destroying my village. Whatever it is, make sure it suffers." The Anvus nodded as he made the way off. Meanwhile, Ragnarok looked down at all of them as the Anvus started to flash onto buildings. "Pathetic humans. You think you can bring me down?" Some of the Anvus rushed through hand sign. Lightning release. Lightning spear. As they tossed lightning spears towards Ragnarok, who simply opened his mouth and started to inhale. As all of their lightning spear went right into his mouth as he swallowed it. "Have them back!" He belched out a massive dose of lightning that streamed down so fast some of them were unable to move as they were incinerated. He laughed as he saw their bodies rip and torn to shreds. He then extended his wings as he flapped them, a mighty gust raining down, shearing off buildings, tearing Anvus to pieces. As he laughed pronouncedly, "Come, humans, I'll bring you all down myself," he said. Meanwhile, that was going on. Ao had left as May was going through some paperwork. She had no idea what was going on in Kiri, seeing that she was underground, near the exit of the village. So she had no idea that that was going on at the moment. Suddenly, she felt something off, something strange, but she didn't feel any pulse of shock or anything, so she thought that she was just imagining things. Years of combat can do that to someone. All of that stopped though as she started to shake. An oppressive aura dropped on the base. She started to tremble as she was seeing things. She must be seeing things. She watched herself die at least 100 times within a second. How could someone have this amount of killing intent for it to affect her this way? She was not a common shinobi. She was almost Kage level. Well, she was Kage level. She could fight a full-scale battle with Yagura hand to hand if he didn't tap into the power of the Bijou. Even if he did, if he didn't went all out, she could fight him same way. So how could something like this put her on nerve like this? Her hands shaking. She couldn't even move, but her hands and her body was shaking uncontrollably. What is this feeling? It was like death itself had entered their camp, coming for their soul. Suddenly, it was gone. As it came, it went away. Ao rushed inside. "May-sama, there's someone coming," he said. The moment those words left his lip, a body slammed into the wall, breaking through it. "Disgusting vermin," said the voice. As Naruto stepped inside looking around, Mei looked at the man that just stepped inside. Her first thought was, he was handsome. But she quickly wiped it away because of the feeling that she felt from him. His cold eyes that she's never seen before, looking at her with such power, such ferocity. And the way he looked at her, it was like she was a speck of dirt, like she didn't even matter in the grand scheme of things, like she wasn't even important, as she wondered who this guy was. "I don't know who you are," said Ao, as he activated his Byakugan, only for him to drop to the ground, clutching his face in pain. As Ao started to cough violently, as it felt like something had shot him right into his eye. He didn't know what that feeling was. As he panted, he couldn't even imagine what could cause that. This must be some side effect of him overusing his Byakugan or something. This can't be real. What he saw pushed his Byakugan sight to a limit. He saw emptiness. At the moment it was full, and at the same moment it was empty and dark and light at the same time. He couldn't express what he felt, what he saw, and yet it override his senses. In that instant, Naruto was in front of Ao as he ripped off the patch off his eye. As Naruto looked at the eye, "You aren't my descendant," said Naruto as he reached forward, only for another patch to arrive on the eye, blocking Naruto's hand. Naruto simply smirked as he ripped right through the patch defenses, tearing through it like it was nothing. Ao screamed as Mei went through hand sign. She released lava balls from her mouth, only for Naruto to wave his hand as they were blown away, slamming into the decks. She had to dive as they slammed into the wall. It was like her attack got more powerful as he waved his hand. As Naruto ripped out the Byakugan, Ayo dropped to the ground, wincing in pain. As he lifted his head slowly, blood running down his eye, as he looked at Naruto, only for Naruto to kick him right in the face, as his head breaks through the wall. As Naruto squashed the eye in his palm, before brushing his hand off. Suddenly, people started to flood into the room. Many of them, who were incapacitated, just dropped to their knees by the power that Naruto released earlier. They finally got their bearings to enter the room. "Stop!" one of them shouted, as Naruto paid them no mind. "Are you the commander of these forces?" Naruto asked. "May pick yourself up." "Woman, I'm talking to you," he said. As one of the men got irritated that this boy, whoever this was, this man, whoever he is, was ignoring them. As he reached for a kunai and rushed forward, Mei couldn't even tell him to stop in time. As Naruto turned and blackhanded the man, as Naruto's backhand slapped against the man's face, Mei watched in surprise and horror as the man's head was ripped from his neck. The amount of force that Naruto placed in his hand, enough to rip off someone's head that easily. The body dropped as the head smashed into the wall. The frightened, shocked expression of the man still remained on his face. As it was then that all hell broke loose. 5 of them leaped into the room. As one of them rushed in front of his Mizukage, well, his soon-to-be Mizukage, as me, was definitely one that will take the position. The 5 of them speed through hand sign, as in this close corridor they know it would be dangerous, but the man that rushed over to me quickly took her through the side entrance. Mei was still, well, dumbfounded at everything that she couldn't even react. As she saw him stood there in the next moment, nothing. The technique smashed in the center, blowing all of them away. They never expected him to move that quickly. As they thought it would hit him, they would get hurt. Well, that was a risk they're willing to take to protect their Mizukage, their soon-to-be. As all of them picked themselves up looking around the room, Mei quickly rushed outside, knowing that it would be better to fight him out here. As she waited for him to arrive. "Woman, didn't you hear me talking to you?" She turned, snap. The man that was guiding her had his neck snap. The remaining 5 men rushed outside, along with the remaining troops. As they were in, they were still inside the underground bunker. But it was more roomy, and a larger space to fight. "Who are you?" said Mei. As her instincts kicked in, she didn't know who the hell this was, but she was surely gonna make him pay for what he did to her soldiers. "My name is Naruto Osusuke, and I'm this world's new god. Bow." She looked at him as a snarl came on her face. "You made a big mistake coming here and attacking my man. I will definitely make you slap." She was sent sailing across the room as she slammed right into the wall. All of them stood there with shock, because they did not even see him move. "When I talk, woman, I expect you to listen." As Mei tried to pick up herself, only to have a foot slam into her back as her face hit the ground. "I said bow. What in that word don't you understand?" Mei struggled, but no matter what she did, she couldn't find the energy to get up. It was like a pressing weight was pressing on her body. But she felt his foot lift up quite a bit, only for her to feel something connect in her face as her nose snapped to the side, breaking. As her body was thrown as he kicked her in the face without any mercy, she smashed in the wall and rolled off like a pinball. She looked up, her vision blurry, as it seemed like her senses were all knocked out of focus. All of her men rushed forward. She tried to warn them, but she could barely talk at the moment, blood rushing in her mouth. As she spit it out, if she wasn't a match for him, then they didn't stand a... She saw they didn't stand a chance. As Naruto ducked under for a swipe, as he reached forward his hand, literally tearing through the shinobi chest. He squashed his hand like he was squashing a plum, tearing the guy's heart apart before using his body and twist it, as he used it to slam into 5 others, knocking them away. As Naruto smirked, as he feel his blood flowing, as moving like this, testing himself, although he wasn't at 100% yet, it was making him feel so much happy, so much better, There was a reason why they call him the god of war back in his time. He loved to spar, loved to push himself, loved to go into a battle where he felt like he could actually die. Even though these shinobis were not pushing him, he loved to go into a battle where someone enjoyed the ride, not afraid or ashamed to fight him. This is what he was talking about. As he spin, slicing off a ninja head, his foot came up and slammed into another one's chest, breaking the man's chest in. He then grabbed another one arm as he ripped it out of the socket and he beat the man to death with it, before twisting around as he fired off. A finger flip, a burst of wind smashed through one of the other guy's chests as the man dropped down dead. As Naruto dived into the array of shinobis, Mei could only watch with shock as she then heard something. As she realized someone was calling out to her, she slowly lifted her head to see that it was Kojiro. "Mei-sama, are you okay?" he said. Kojiro, she coughed up more blood. "Run," she said. If she could at least do something, she could make sure that he was safe. "Get out of here." Kojiro stood in front of her with his blade unsheathed. "No, I will not leave you alone. I will protect you." As he held out one of the legendary 7 blades in front of him, as he held onto it rather tight, as he saw this guy mercilessly defeat and beat all of his comrades to death. As Naruto started to laugh, it's been a while since he enjoyed himself as he ducked under another punch, ripping the guy face right off, literally tearing the skin off the bone, as he snapped the guy's neck and the body dropped. The few others stood there. The only reason why they haven't engaged yet was because of fear. Utter, unbelievable fear that rocked their system, as they were unable to move, as they still couldn't understand how did this one person come in here and take on a platoon like that without even breaking a single sweat. As the blood was over him as well, it made him look like some demon craving blood. As Naruto stepped forward, walking towards me, who had propped herself up by this time. As Kojiro moved forward, out of everyone else, he was the only one going forward. "Kojiro, stop," said me, as he raised the blade that transformed into a hammer. The shape, as his chakra pulsed through it, he brought it down. Boom! It was like two steel met together, as a shockwave ran through the tunnel system, blowing back many of the ninjas. Kojiro's hand trembled as he stood there. The ground had broken under Naruto's feet. Kojiro couldn't believe it. He stopped it. As Kojiro took a deep breath with his hand. As Naruto reached forward, as he was about to grab Kojiro by the face. "Stop! Please stop! Don't kill him." As he turned his head, it was me. "I'll listen to what you have to say. Don't kill him," she said. If there was anything she knew when to give up. Although she had been fighting for home the longest time, she has never met a challenge to bring everyone to their knees like this. And Kojiro didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this death. The boy was just fighting for his home. He was under her leadership like all of her men. She wanted to protect him. She wanted to protect all of them. As she saw Ayo struggling to get back to his feet, but his feet was failing him. His entire body seemed to rack with pain. As Kojiro was happy that his Mizukage, soon to be, cared about him so much, stupidly enough taking his eyes off Naruto, as Naruto grabbed him by the throat. "I told you stop," said Mei. "I'll listen to what you have to say." "Do you think I care?" Naruto asked. "And I asked you to do something first, and it seems like you're still disobeying me. What did I told you to do when I first came here? So unless you want everyone here to die, and your home to burn to the ground, I suggest you do as I told you." "No, Mei-sama," said Kojiro, as Naruto gripped tightened, as the boy was turning blue from lack of oxygen. Despite her pride, she lowered herself to the ground, placing her head down, as she bowed, as Naruto released the boy, who was barely breathing at this point, as he almost died. He was taking in slow, shallow breath. If that had happened from the beginning, then your people would have been spared. She clenched her teeth. "What do you want?" she said. "Look at me." She slowly raised her head. "I want you to rule under my command." She looked at him confused. "At the moment, my subordinate will take out the other forces. I will try to spare as much of them as possible. After all, you still need people to rule. And I still need servants under me. She clenched her fist so tight blood was coming from her palm. As Naruto looked at her, as he didn't seem to be interested by anything. Kiri is the first major village that would take siege under the Uzumaki Empire. She heard about that name, as she heard about their recent growth. So he was the one in charge. Yes, I am. She blinked. Did he just read your mind? Yes, I did. She was confused. Was he? No, I'm not a Yamanaka. Don't try to involve me with those disgusting humans. My name is Naruto Osusuke, and I'm the god of this new world. I suggest you stay here. As he looked up and broke through the ceiling, his body breaking through it. Naruto made his way to the surface area. As he took in a deep breath, he then dropped to his knees. He started to laugh. An evil, wicked laughter. He turned his head to the sky as he laughed, as the place started to tremble. Currently, Ragnarok stopped fighting. As he looked up, he smiled. It seems like it's sooner than he thought. Meanwhile, as Naruto's body literally exploded, the amount of power rushing from his coils were unnatural. They were beyond anything that anyone has ever witnessed before. It seems that the entire world was being affected, as a red aura shot up into the sky, turning the blue, pristine sky completely red. The sun was being completely blocked out. Thunder, tidal wave, the ocean started to stir, earthquake. The entire place was feeling its presence, as his power was currently finally being fully realigned. Everything was coming out to the surface, as he was back to 100%. As he released a final roar that shook the area, Osusuke Naruto was back at 100%. Rain started to fall, but this was no ordinary rain. It was red like blood, as it showered each and every part of the elemental nation. As Naruto looked up, this is what you started, Hagoromo, Hamura. I hope you enjoy your choices now for sealing me away. I told you before and I'll tell you again. This world will bow at the feet of Osusuke Naruto, he shouted. But guys, it'll be end episode right here. If you want the next part, do like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification as they posted. But I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace, guys.